friend Chesley.
So Chesley's ready to talk about this here.
How I'm going to do this. There's no space for my paper.
Hollywood Square.
There's something about that. Lamar, we ready? Is everyone ready? Anybody not ready? Wonderful. Thank you all for being here. Ordinarily on Mondays, the DA's office does a press conference. Today, we are doing a press conference with our criminal justice partners and our educational partners. This is an important and a special moment in the history of the city, and it is special that we remember that we have to protect our schools. We have to protect our students. We have to protect our teachers. And we have to have schools that are calm, that are peaceful, where students can learn. It is a fact that at the same time we went back to teaching in class, at the same time we went back to open classrooms in the city of Philadelphia, we started to see some weeks of improvement in the number of gun violence homicides, in the amount of gun violence. We need to protect our schools because that is what we should do for our children and the people who teach our children. But we also need to protect our public schools because they're being open and they're functioning in a way that is appropriate and normal, makes all of us safe. It's incredibly important that we're able to do this. I am extremely pleased and honored that we have with us some of the following folks. In fact, I'm honored that they're all here. We have our mayor, Jim Kenney. We have Danielle Outlaw, our police commissioner. Dr. William Hite, who is the superintendent of the Philadelphia School District, is here. We have Kevin Bethel, the chief safety officer for the Philadelphia Public Schools. We have the Attorney General's office, which is here and represented by John Kitzinger, the chief of criminal investigations for that office. Mr. Kitzinger was also an FBI agent before that. We have Joyce Wilkerson, who's the president of the Philadelphia School Board. We have Councilmember Derek Green, City Council at Large. We have Councilmember Kendra Brooks, City Council at Large as well. We have Aaliyah Katanch Bradley, who is the principal of the Mary McLeod Bethune School, where we are currently. And we have some students who have some pretty interesting things to say. We have with us Herman Andino, an 8th grader at this school. We have Dr. Veronica Joyner, who is the CEO of the Mathematics, Civics, and Sciences School, and she is here with 2 of her students, Kayla Waddington, a 10th grader at that school, and Jaden Heath, a 12th grader at that school. We also have Melanie Nelson, who is the executive director of Northwest Victim Services, with whom we work all the time. And we have Robert Listenby, the first assistant in the DA's office, Chesley Lightsey, who is the chief of the Homicide and Non-Fatal Shootings Unit. She is an attorney because that is a prosecution unit. And we have Deborah Watson-Stokes, also an attorney who is the chief of our municipal court unit. So very briefly, and in not as much detail as usual, I want to talk about gun violence that we saw in the city of Philadelphia from October the 23rd of 2021 through the 29th. It's the usual 7-day period that we cover. Based upon the data that we have available, it appears that year-to-date homicides today are 458. This date last year, there were 414. That is an 11% increase over last year. And while obviously that is unacceptable, and it's something that we are constantly working on that keeps a lot of us up at night, I want to note that 3 months ago we were at 38% higher. We're now at 11% higher, and that is 27 points in the right direction. In terms of fatal shootings that occurred between the 23rd and the 29th of October, our data is showing 5 incidents. And once again, that's terrible. But bear in mind, if you look at the data during the entire pandemic, and the data for this year, which you're going to, because we've been in the pandemic all year, what you're going to find is the average number of homicides during that period was 1.5 per day. That is 10.5 per week. So 5 in a week is at least going in a better direction. I would also note that 4 weeks ago we had 11. 3 weeks ago we had about 3 or 4. Last week, the week before this one, it was about 3 or 4 again, and here we are at 5. So I say with cautious optimism, we see some motion that is going in a better direction, and I think we need to thank our public schools, and I think we need to thank all of our law enforcement partners who are here, and we need to thank the community for everything that they are doing to get us going in the right direction. I'm just going to briefly touch on a couple of shootings that occurred during this period, and then we will move on to our main topic. On Sunday, October the 31st, at about 11:30 p.m. near 26th and Morris, in the 17th Police District, there was a shooting. An approximately 14-year-old black male was shot 1 time in the right side. He took an Uber to the University of Pennsylvania Hospital and was placed in stable condition. No arrest has been made. Anyone with information, please contact South Detective Division of the Philadelphia Police Department at 215-686-3014. I also want to talk about a triple shooting that occurred this morning. On Monday, November the 1st, at about 2:30 a.m. on the 1400 block of Parrish Street in the 9th Police District, there was a triple shooting homicide of 3 males who were shot multiple times throughout their bodies. Victim number 1 is an approximately 25 to 35-year-old black male who was transported to Jefferson Hospital where he was pronounced. Victim number 2 is a black male about in his mid-20s, also transported to Jefferson, placed in extremely critical condition. Victim number 3, an approximately 22-year-old black male was transported to Jefferson and placed in extremely critical condition. Once again, anyone with information, please contact the PPD's homicide unit at 215-686-3334. Our Chief of Homicide in the DA's office, Chesley Lightsey, is here and will be available to answer questions on those cases if there are any questions about those cases. And now I'm delighted to have the opportunity to turn to the urgent issue of school and student safety. There are a lot of people here who have, frankly, more interesting things to say about this than I do. But I want you to know that I believe we are all united in a couple of messages. Number one, we are all working together to hold shooters accountable, particularly for those shootings that occur near schools. Whether or not they involve people from those schools, doesn't matter. If there's shooting going on outside of a school, if schools are going on lockdown, then they are disrupting those schools in ways that are extremely harmful to all of society, and we take that very seriously. Number two, we are prosecuting gun possession cases, particularly those carrying in and on school property. We take that very, very seriously. These need to be havens. They need to be sanctuaries. These cannot be places where people are walking up and down the halls with fear that another student is carrying a gun, or a parent. Number three, with reference to the prosecution of drug cases, especially those that are happening on or near school property, as we see among other places in Kensington, once again, we take that extremely seriously. It does not work to have students who are walking by active drug dealing that is occurring in the block. They have to traverse to get there. It's not okay, and it is absolutely a factor that my office considers when we determine what to do with a case involving the dealing of drugs. Number four, parents, and I say this as a parent, parents, whether you got a son who's a school teacher or not, and I do, we are not threatening teachers. We are not telling our kid to go home and get a gun. We are not touching teachers. We are not punching teachers. We are not doing this. We are not having it. None of these law enforcement professionals up here and the school district are not having it. So don't even think about it. Number five, we are committed to provide support to victims and co-victims of homicides, non-fatal shootings, and other crimes, including within the schools. And in that vein, our community outreach has spent a lot of time and does spend a lot of time in and out of schools speaking to students when things have gone poorly, but also when things have not gone poorly, to lay that foundation of trust and understanding that is necessary. Having said that, it is now my honor to introduce in this order, and I won't keep coming up because I don't want to waste that time, but in this order, I'd like to introduce the following speakers. First, Mayor Jim Kenney. Second, Superintendent Dr. William Hite. Third, Commissioner Danielle Outlaw. Fourth, if she chooses to do so, Joyce Wilkerson, President of the School Board. Fifth, we have John Kitzinger from the Attorney General's office. Next is Principal Aaliyah Katanch Bradley. Then we have Dr. Veronica Joyner. Then Melanie Nelson. And then we get to the stars of the show. We have Jaden Heath, a 12th grader from Math, Civics, and Sciences, Herman Andino, an 8th grader from Mary McLeod Bethune School, and Kayla Waddington, a 10th grader from Math, Civics, and Sciences. I just want to say a word about these students who are here from Math, Civics, and Sciences, because it might be something you don't know, and you will probably be as tickled as I was when I found it out. The mock trial team at Math, Civics, and Sciences is rated number 4 in the world. In the world. They have recently defeated the best team in Ireland, the best team in Nevada, the best team in Tennessee, and shortly they will be going to Chicago, where they will take on the 20 best teams in the world. I think that says something about Philadelphia. Roman Catholic, by the way, is also sending a team among the 20 best in the world to that competition. But I think it says a lot about the quality of education, the quality, the aspiration and effort, the potential that we see in these students, and we are not having it, that these students' potential is limited by people who want to pick up guns or deal drugs or threaten teachers or harm students. We are not having that. It is my honor to introduce someone who cares so deeply about education and has done so much for education, especially among younger students in Philadelphia, and that is Mayor Jim Kenney.
Thank you, District Attorney, and thank you for the invitation to join you all here today. And again, I'd also like to thank Commissioner Danielle Outlaw, Superintendent Dr. Hite, Chief of School Safety Kevin Bethel, Deputy Chief John Kitzinger, for the Attorney General's Office for being here today, and for all the important work you all are doing towards ensuring the safety of our children in our city. I also want to thank the students and educators in the room today. The rise of gun violence in our city in the wake of this pandemic is sickening, particularly when children are endangered, shot, and tragically in some instances killed. For our administration at this moment in time, there's no greater priority than combating the scourge of guns. That's why through our Office of Violence Prevention, in partnership with the Council, we've distributed more than $4.8 million to community organizations through our anti-violence community expansion grants, with more to come in the following weeks. But we know that one strategy is not enough to resolve the crisis, so we continue to do everything possible to protect our communities and to work with city leaders and law enforcement to promote public safety. I'm glad that the District Attorney chose the Bethune School for this press conference, because it gives me an opportunity to highlight some programs we've invested in to keep our kids safe, a focus that predates the pandemic and this spike in shootings. Protecting our children means many things, and we recognize early on in our administration that investing in out-of-school time activities is critical. It's pretty simple. When children have activities after school, it gives them a safe space to grow and an opportunity to enrich themselves. The Bethune School is a perfect example. Through our Office of Children and Families, the city funds out-of-school time programming at Bethune, which is run by a program called To Our Children's Future with Health. They have served the Bethune community for years, have a great relationship with the school and the principal, and infuse their activities with literacy and social and emotional learning. I'm proud to say that we have after partnership like this at more than 70 schools throughout the city. The Office of Children and Families also supports a truancy program here at Bethune. This is part of our Truancy Intervention and Prevention Services, or TIPS, focusing on supporting students and their families to overcome obstacles to school attendance. At Bethune, this service is provided through Carson Valley Children's Aid. The team at Carson Valley works with school attendant staff to provide case management support to students at risk of becoming truant. Carson Valley provides additional support and partnerships to families, including figuring out why young people are missing school, and they help the family connect to resources. The provider even attends school conferences with the family, conducts home visits, and ensures barriers are identified and addressed. This assures more students go to school consistently and avoid formal involvement with child welfare services. I welcome all of you in the media to highlight these programs which support families and help students stay connected and engaged in learning throughout the day. Because, and I've said this many times, there is no single solution to gun violence. We need to address this from all angles. As you see here at Bethune, enhancing out-of-school time offerings and truancy supports for students are successful, time-proven approaches that can make a difference. They support working parents and caregivers. They benefit children's development. They help children avoid high-risk behaviors. These programs and many others across the city help children stay safe. Additionally, we are working together to create safe spaces around the schools, and Commissioner Outlaw will provide updates on these programs when she speaks. We will continue to work with law enforcement and school district partners to create and protect the safe and supportive spaces that all children deserve. And I want to thank everyone up here for all the work and concern that they have. And I also want to thank our police department. Under difficult circumstances, every single day, our officers are on the street taking guns out of people's waistbands and out of their hands. We've collected or confiscated twice as many handguns this year than we did last year at this time. We've arrested almost twice as many people for violation of the Uniform Firearms Act, more than the same time last time. Our officers are out there working every single day. There are too many guns in our society and too many guns in our country. And until we address that in some form, we're going to continue to struggle with these issues. But we're going to continue to do our best to invest in what makes sense to get our arms around our children, let them understand that they're loved and supported, and to try to keep them safe. Dr. Hite, I believe, is next.
Thanks, Mayor Kenney, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Mr. DA, for inviting all of us here. And I want to thank everyone who is here on behalf of making sure we send a strong and clear message about the need to have safety in and around our schools. In recent weeks, district students were victims of some of the most unsettling acts of gun violence. A 13-year-old was shot on the way to school. A 17-year-old was shot down a few steps away from the school, leaving school. A 16-year-old was ambushed outside of his home. And as we know, violence, unfortunately, isn't a new phenomenon. But what we're now seeing more brazen behavior in and around schools, with our educators, with our children, so much so that our young people begin to get worried, traumatized about whether or not it's safe to travel to and from school. We've always worked to make sure that individuals understood that were certain things that were off limits in school buildings. And I appreciate everyone's presence here this morning to send a clear message about the importance of ensuring that when individuals and young people are on their way to our schools and on their way home from our schools, are in our schools, when our educators are working within our schools, that those individuals are doing so in a safe and supportive environment. And so with that, there are lots of things that we're doing as a school district. Many of you heard those things last week in a separate conference that Kevin Bethel and I did over at the district headquarters. Be glad to talk about that more when we get to the question and answer part of this. But I too want to thank everyone who is here. I want to thank Commissioner Outlaw and PPD for the tremendous partnerships, the DA's office, the mayor's office for providing so many different supports. Dr. Robin Cooper is here representing all of our administrators and understands fully what our administrators are having to deal with when individuals are threatening either them or their staffs or their students. And Principal Katance Bradley, thank you for opening up your building for us this morning. City Council members Green and Brooks, thank you as always for your support for our young people and for the safety of the individuals who serve them. And so with that, as a school district, we're going to continue to do everything we can to ensure that our young people are safe and supported. And it's going to take all of us, not just one agency that's standing up here today or one office that's standing up here today to address this. It will take all of us, our collective efforts, to ensure that our young people remain safe, both to and from and while they're in schools, as well as the individuals who serve and support them. Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For our students, good afternoon. For our students and parents, the 2021 and 22 school year will continue to be a year like no other. After more than a year of remote learning for the majority of our students, this September brought a return to full-time in-person learning. While there continues to be some anxiety for parents and students surrounding health safety in the classroom from a public safety standpoint, a child or parent should never, ever have to worry about being deliberately harmed while in school. To that end, PPD continues to work with the school district, local businesses, and community volunteers to ensure that our students have safe passage to and from school. Since this summer, the PPD and other city leadership have discussed the Safe Corridors program for children traveling to and from school. Safe Corridors is a volunteer program spearheaded by the School District of Philadelphia. The program is a collaboration between the district, businesses, and community members that aims to provide extra supervision for students. It's similar to a neighborhood watch program. Volunteers can opt to patrol routes around schools at the start and end of the school day, or to keep watch from their homes or their businesses. Volunteers often work in teams, sharing information and reporting any suspicious or unusual activities. This information sharing alerts school administrators early on to any possible issues between children and their families and or their friends. Every district has a Safe Quarters program, but volunteers are always needed. For more information, please contact that gentleman right there, Anthony Murphy, at 215-519-1965. Lastly, I want to say, today marks the start of the Philadelphia School Safe Zones program. between the PPD and the School District of Philadelphia. In an effort spearheaded by our department, Deputy Commissioner of Patrol Joel Dales, who's not here, has worked extensively with Chief Bethel and the school district principals to identify 38 schools spread across 25 safety zones that will benefit from an increased police presence. These zones will primarily focus around middle and high schools that were selected during the latest criminal or crime data available. Thank you. In short, officers assigned to these zones will be on the lookout for suspicious activity and mainly to create safe spaces for students as they head to and from school. While we do not want to get into the exact details of the program for tactical reasons, suffice it to say that students and parents will notice an increase in visible officers around these areas. It's important to note that the increase in presence will not come at the expense of routine neighborhood patrols. In fact, these additional resources will bolster the numbers of officers on the ground in some of our more challenged communities. It's clear that our communities understand that this is and needs to be and remain a united effort, a unified effort, from teachers to police to community members and parents. Everyone, as it was previously stated, has to be involved in the safety of our children. This past year and a half has shown us how all resilient our children can be, and we'll hear from them to demonstrate that even more. The PPD remains committed to working with all of our partners towards ensuring that they have every opportunity available in order so that they can learn and flourish in a safe and productive environment. We owe it to our communities and we owe it to our children.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Attorney General's office recognizes how critical it is for our children to remain safe in our schools. The guarantee of a safe environment allows children to learn and to grow. The Attorney General's office will continue to build upon the strong collaborative efforts with our law enforcement partners to ensure that all children in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania are safe. Thank you.
I'm so used to having my walkie, I don't really need it up here, so I'm gonna put that down. Any crisis, I'm sure we now have so much power in the room, we'll be all right. So I want to welcome everyone here to Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune Elementary School. She is our anchor ancestor. She tells us all to enter to learn, to part to serve. Oh, how she and our ancestors would be so not understanding about what tall order that is right now. We are charged with the safety of our scholars inside the building, but often they come to school very concerned about how they have to travel in some very unsafe conditions to get here. How I wish as a principal, mother, daughter, Mimi to Amaya, and also a member of CASA with Dr. Robin Cooper, I say to you that I wish I could promise all my students safe travels, but I can't. So we do the best that we can, and I'm really waiting and also here to be part of the solutions to make sure that is so. Mary McLeod Bethune Elementary School is a neighborhood school. We are very proud of the fact that we produce some very excellent scholars here who come to school each and every day waiting to learn. However, we also sit juxtaposed to one of the busiest trauma centers here in the city, which is Temple University's hospital. There, my scholars, students, their family members, parents, and others are plagued daily with the gun violence that is out of control in our city, and we're all here to be part of the solution. We clearly can't police our way out. It will take all of us. It says very clearly in the African proverb that when children do not feel the warmth of the village, they will burn it down. Well, we want to hear from our scholars in very safe, loving, supporting ways so that we are not here to have things that are burning to the ground, but we want to help to upbuild, uplift, and support. I leave you with this. Every student, regardless of their zip code, should have safe places to travel, excellent schools to walk to, and beautiful, loving people to receive them. We are here. We're part of that solution, and we want to be in partnership. Our teachers want to come to school and feel safe. Our family members want to have safe places to send our children, and we stand as part of that solution. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Veronica Joyner, and I am the Chief Administrative Officer and the founder of the Mathematics, Civics, and Sciences Charter School. The impact of gun violence on my school has been devastating. I have lost students that were shopping and getting off of a SEPTA bus. I lost another student that heard gunshots and ushered his brothers and other family members into the home and got shot in the back and killed. I had still another coming from working at Burger King to help support his family, and he was shot and killed. My concern is that this has to stop. I have had to add 2 courses to my curriculum. One to the fire drill, to get my students to stop, drop, and take cover. Why should I have to teach children to do that in the city of brotherly love? I have had to add a grief counselor and other support staff from the District Attorney's Office. Mr. Krasner, thank you. Keep beating the drum. We are having this conference because we continue in this city like business as usual. Another one shot, 458 deaths. I am tired. I am devastated. I was born here, and I deserve to be safe. When I have my children afraid to come to school, it's a problem. Our commissioner needs help. She needs people to come in. We are at war. What do you do when there's a war? You arm your troops. She did not create this problem. Commissioner Outlaw, she inherited this problem. It has been growing for a while. Give her help. We need to start by teaching our children love, character building, things that we have lost so long ago. Our children deserve to have skills. If our schools have not increased the number of vocational skills in our schools, we need to teach our students to use their hands for skills and not to pick up a gun. I am tired of watching our morgues packed with men and women that look like me and children. It looks like the past of the packed slave ships of long ago. This city needs to come to the aid of the citizens. I am a taxpayer here. I have a right to be safe, to walk the streets. Children have the rights to play in the streets. We don't have that. So let us do something to get help. I am appalled that representatives I voted for have not stepped up. It is not business as usual when 450 people are murdered on the street and we say nothing. City Council, take charge. Every city council person in this city represents some community. Take charge. Call for what it is. It's a state of emergency in Philadelphia. We should not be known as the city of Philadelphia and hate, and we should be known as the city of brotherly love. Love, that's what we give. Please, all public officials, step up, take control, and stop the violence. Thank you.
It took a lot for me to come today because I'm tired of having meetings, to have meetings, to talk about another meeting, to have a meeting. Where's that mother who said to me, Miss Nelson, I'm not surprised my son died this way. His nickname was Shooter.
He was shot 7 times above the neck. And she said to me, I raised my son to be that thug. Where is she? Don't have me at your meeting. You preaching to the choir. I raised my children well. Did they do some things? Yes, they did. But where are those mothers and fathers who are raising their children to be disrespectful, raising their children to shoot? Where are those parents? That's who we need to be talking to. Don't have me at your meeting. We got to find these people, and then we have to help themselves. If you got a young child that sees his dad selling drugs, see his uncle selling drugs, how does he know that's not right? He's being bred to do this. She's being bred to do this. So I challenge everybody here, when I'm working on the weekends and the evenings, when those children need to be safe and they come forth and say, she did this or he did this, on a Saturday, I need to be able to say, listen, we got to relocate this family. We have to help them around the clock, not just Monday through Friday while they're in school. This stuff is happening on the internet, and they need help. We have to figure out how to do this, and I am so glad we're coming together, because this shows that we're stepping in the right direction. But I am boots on the ground, and everybody here knows that. My phone is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. People can reach me on my cell at all times. So I thank everyone. I do. This is a step in the right direction. But please understand, we got to do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Jaden Heath, and I am a senior representing the Mathematics, Civics, and Sciences Charter School of Philadelphia. Today, I am here to discuss the issue of gun violence here in Philadelphia in our schools and how it affects students every day. Around this time last year, I lost a close friend and a classmate due to gun violence. This was a tragedy, not just to me and his classmates, but to the school as a whole. I'm sure everybody here has lost a relative or a loved one due to gun violence, and that is not okay. As the city of Philadelphia, we need to make sure that gun violence ends as a whole, and that we are able to be safe wherever we go, not just in schools, everywhere. We need to we need to have more people in place and more organizations and programs to ensure that we are able to walk the streets safe, walk to school safe, walk to wherever safe. Because as the city of Philadelphia, we need to show brotherly love and sisterly affection. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Herman Andino. I am an 8th grader at Bethune. I feel concerned coming to and from school. I feel concerned, and the reason I feel concerned is because Bethune is surrounded by a neighborhood impacted by gun violence. Even though I feel safe in my school, I don't feel safe around my school. I don't feel safe coming out of school. I get anxiety because just around the corner, 8 murders have been happening to students my age, and it's not right around it. I just want to give a message for people to stay positive, even though this city is going through tough times. One person can make a difference, and I feel like that one person can get a group of people, and they can make a difference. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kayla Waddington, and I'm a 10th grader at the Mathematics, Civics, and Sciences Charter School of Philadelphia. Gun violence has risen in our city, and the effects can be seen everywhere. Many of my classmates have lost friends and loved ones to gun violence, which had nothing to do with them. I can't even turn on the radio without hearing about another teenager who has lost their life due to undue tragedy. Sometimes people forget that teenagers know what's going on around them. we see how things are in the world. Without a space to talk about the issues which plague our communities and our society, teens and children harbor their feelings of fear and hopelessness. The fallout comes when grades drop and students begin acting out. They are then labeled as problem students with behavior issues. Suspensions and expulsions don't provide students with the help they so desperately need. Instead, the student is now at risk to grave mental health issues that can ruin a person's life in countless ways if left unchecked. This seemingly endless cycle of violence has ravaged our communities, and it has to stop. We need to destigmatize conversations about mental health and start programs that combat the source of the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla. All right, obviously, that was beautifully done, and I just want to take 1 minute to do something before we take questions. The questions are for anyone here, but I want to bring up Jaden, Herman, and Kayla for a moment. Would you get behind the podium here, please? Because we need to have a proper picture. And I want the whole mock trial team. I want all of you and your coach up here right behind them, please. There is a reason I'm asking you to come up here. And that reason is we need to see what is at stake. Principal Joyner, you want to come up? Principal Joyner has already spoken about how many students from the same school as this mock trial team, not Herman's school, he's from this school, but from math and sciences, how many students have been affected by gun violence, and yet we see this team and its coach ranked 4th in the world for mock trial teams, persevering, overcoming. We have to dig in to make sure that they are okay. Now I'm going to get out of the picture because you should be taking a picture and some video of the real stars of this show, surrounded by the educators who've made them what they are. Now that is a disciplined team, isn't it? didn't move an inch. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. Obviously, everybody in Philadelphia is going to be rooting for you. It's about time you showed up the entire world, not just most of it. All right, are there any questions for any of the people who are assembled here? Yes, please.
Question for Commissioner. Commissioner, when you were speaking last week about low morale, part of the reason that you stated was because officers on the ground aren't necessarily involved in some of the decision making. I'm curious why that is, and if there's any plans to change that, for example, when you're determining what to do about gun violence, if you're listening to the troops on the ground.
Was this about school safety?
It is, well, it's on decisions on gun violence and everything.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, Claudia.
Sure, no. So when you were speaking about low morale, the part of the reason was not listening from officers on the ground. So I'm curious why that is, and if there's any plan to change that, particularly when you're making decisions such as what you're discussing today, how to combat gun violence around schools.
So I didn't say that officers aren't listened to. Typically, and this isn't just in any police department, this is everywhere, especially when you have thousands and thousands of employees. So whether it's government, public safety, private sector, or whatever it is, there's gaps at times, communications gaps between the executive leadership and all the way down to the frontline folks. And my whole point in sharing that with you was that we have to ensure that there are feedback loops so that they can be heard and that there is input in any type of strategy, whether we're talking about school safety, which is what we're talking about today, or if we're talking about any other gun violence reduction strategies, ensuring that our employees are empowered so that there's investment when we are executing.
And I would extend that question also to the district attorney and the mayor. Do you guys seek the input of on-the-ground officers when you're making decisions such as these?
I mean, I just thanked our officers for how hard they're working and the production that they're doing to when it comes to confiscating illegal guns and arresting people for carrying illegal guns. It's difficult to be a police officer. It's difficult to be a public servant. But especially it's difficult to be a police officer when you're in harm's way every day. So I can understand why sometimes they would be a little down. But sorry about that. Nothing personal. Nothing personal, Channel 3. Our officers talk to their commanders. They're in the districts. They give feedback. I was on a ride-along the other day, and a mental health ride-along in the 24th, 25th, and 26th police districts. Young officer, 14 years on the force. We were interacting and talking. He was giving me his ideas on things. I don't really understand the direction of your question, but I know that all of our commanders are very much in tune with their officers and have constant conversations. So, and I think they're doing a great job.
I got a question for the police chief. The Safe Corridors program that you talked about, how do you plan on monitoring the effectiveness of that program? That's what you want to know.
Safe Corridors.
Safe corridors. Ask your question again.
How do you plan on monitoring the effectiveness of the Safe Corridors?
So just so you're clear, so we're creating a Safe Pathway program. Safe Path is the program. Anthony Murphy has the corridors, but I'll quickly talk about the path. We are going to be hiring community organizations to implement those Safe Pathway program. Through that process, we'll be able to monitor their activity and create a resources and ability to be able to track where they're at, what they're doing, and that behavior that's going on around that. And they'll be able to report that to our men and women in the field. And I'll turn it over to Anthony Murphy, who does the Town Watch Integrated Services.
Good afternoon. The Safe Corridors program, we monitor that by working directly with the volunteers. We provide them trainings, working with the school, with the particular schools that they cover, connecting them to school staff, so that in the course of the day, we know that they're there in the morning, and we know that they're there in the afternoon. Okay.
I really want to speak with Commissioner Outlaw. So how many students have been shot this year, or how many school-age youth have been shot this year?
I'll circle back with that. We'll have to circle back with you with that number. You can get a hold of Sergeant Grip over there. But just young people, juveniles under the age of 18, we're still hovering at about 10% that have been shot or a victim of a homicide.
So the problem with gun violence is nothing new. And the city has been studying and has been investigating this for some time. Where are these kids getting these guns from?
Well, it's very easy to get guns here. They're very accessible, and we've been talking about this for a long time. A lot of the guns that we see, our partners here at the ATF aren't here, but a lot of the guns that we see are from the region, or they're from within the state of Pennsylvania. There's a few we can say, maybe come from the Virginia or Atlanta area. But whether it's through straw purchasing or, again, which is when someone purchases a gun legally and then hands it off to someone illegally, it's just so many ways that young people can get them, and it's not very expensive. So.
Another question for the mayor. Community leaders have raised the issue of the lack of jobs and career opportunities. Bethune is located in 191.0, which is the second poorest zip code in the city. What are we doing to bring jobs and careers to parents and families in this area?
Eric Atwood, and I can also add to it, too.
Good afternoon. Erica Atwood. I serve as Senior Director for Criminal Justice and Public Safety. Specifically to jobs, the Office of Criminal Justice and Public Safety is partnering with the Department of Commerce to fully address the lack of opportunity or the lack of connectivity to opportunities for those who are the most vulnerable to gun violence. We're doing that in two ways. One, there's a comprehensive strategy that is being built specifically focused on utilizing funds set aside by our partners in the City Council to develop a strategy within Commerce. In my department, we are doing two things. One, we are hiring a director of workforce development and economic opportunity that's specifically focused on those who are at risk of gun violence and recidivism. Secondly, we are in the the end of the first phase of a feasibility study for a program based out of Chicago called READY. READY is a violence reduction strategy which focuses on workforce development, cognitive behavioral health, and mentorship. And so we are looking to utilize that program, the model from that program, and implement it here in Philadelphia that focuses on those who are at the highest risk of shooting and being shot.
And we're also sending people to our workforce development folks on a regular basis. Right now, for example, there's a large need on the Philadelphia waterfront for people to help unload ships and drive trucks. We're working with SEPTA that's helping us with a commercial driver's license program project. We're referring people out of our CTE schools to businesses and to unions.
We need bus drivers.
Yeah, they need bus drivers. So, we're working on every possible opportunity there is to get our young people in the right direction. Sometimes the training is lacking, and we need to get them through a training program first. We're also developed the Cato Scholarship at Community College, which I believe has 170 or so young people in there now, full tuition, and some of their living expenses to get them on the road to a 2-year and hopefully a 4-year degree. So we can get you a whole list of things we're doing.
Mr. Mayor, right there. Just real quick, Mr. Mayor, and anyone can speak to what the sister was saying about the parents. What message can we really get to the parents who know their kids have the gun, who know their kids are a part of the crime? What is a safe way to get these parents to turn their kids in?
Every family's different. Every family has a different circumstance. I can't speak for every parent and father and mother in the city. As I said, when I was, it sounds like reminiscing, but it's true. When I was 16 years old, I never saw a gun. The only gun I ever saw was a police officer who lived down the street that was friends with his son, and I saw his gun. You have to, I guess, look at your own conscience, figure out what you need to do to keep your kids safe. And if your son has a gun in it between the mattresses, you may be able to remove it and turn it over. You can get the gun out of the house. The other problem, frankly, was very frustrating is the number of young people who were shot or killed in the home because the gun's unsecured, because a little toddler gets it and shoots his brother or sister. These are tragic events that are so preventable. Each family's different. Each parent's got to examine their own conscience and figure out what they need to do to get if there's a gun in the house, to get it out of there, and what they need to do with their young people.
DA Krasner, can I just ask, you talked about the severity of guns and the proximity of schools and how you take that very seriously. Are you guys looking at harsher charges then for people that have guns near schools or are shooting near schools? Is there like some sort of extra charge that they get on, or are you keeping them?
So the short answer to that is there really are not any harsher charges. We use all the tools in the toolbox. We use all the charges that are available. It is perhaps the more important aspect of what you're getting at, though, is will we go to a sentencing and say, Judge, this happened in a school. This happened right outside a school. This was within sight of people coming into the front door, and that's an important factor that we think you should consider, because we think that a longer or more serious sentence is appropriate. Yes, we will do that. Yes, we have done that. It is a relevant factor. It is appropriate, and and we will raise all of those issues. Are there other?
No, just to say, it's obviously no secret that a lot of the on-the-ground cops think that you're not tough enough on gun violence. That oftentimes they'll arrest somebody and they'll be right back out. Do you communicate with those on-the-ground officers to try to, amend those relationships and kind of get a better understanding of where they're coming from, where you're coming from?
I can tell you that I work with police all the time in various different capacities. One of them is the police officers who are employed in the DA's office. They are known as DA's detectives, and I deal with them all the time, even on investigations we're doing. My safety is protected by 2 Philadelphia police officers, one of whom is actually here and is a graduate of this school, where she attended for 3 years as a very young person who came here from Puerto Rico. This is where she learned English. I deal with police all the time, and I frankly don't accept the notion that all police think one way. They don't. It's just a stereotype like any other. I understand that they are certainly entitled to their opinions. We respect that. We want that input. We get that input all the time from different levels within the police department, and we take it seriously. Are there other questions? So I'm going to invite my educational partners to answer that because I think they have a better sense. Not everything comes to my attention because it has to result in an arrest and then it has to come to the office. So I'm going to let them answer that.
Yes, you were asking about the threats to staff members. Yes, that has picked up, and not just this year. It started to pick up before, and the DA's office was very active previously on those types of things where individuals are either making threats or going to schools and really, in some cases, assaulting staff. And so we also wanted to send a clear message that that is not what the purpose of schools, that's not the purpose of school, and we will work collectively to make sure individuals understand that they can't come up and demonstrate those types of behaviors.
The other question I have, sorry, and I know the commissioner just left, but for you, Dr. Hite, do you guys have any extra, we talk so much about right after a shooting happens and a student is dead, or right after a student in a school is shot. Well, what is happening, I want to say, with the trauma that they even know that somebody is shot in those schools? Like, there can't be group counselors there, I assume, all the time. Are you guys talking about it in schools? Are principals talking about it in schools? And as far as the safety of kids walking, like, we had one young man talk about how he doesn't feel safe walking in and out of school. What are those conversations like? Is there any elevated program?
Yeah, so this year we've added like behavior health services as another mechanism for schools. We additionally have teams of individuals who go to support schools and individuals who are either have witnessed it or also victims of violent events. And so
that's right after the shooting happens. That's not like the prolonged trauma.
Yeah, no, that's not the prolonged, but that's the purpose of the behavior health counselors. We also directed more targeted resources to 25 schools in communities that were most heavily impacted by gun violence. And so it's also help for families and support structures as well.
Did you want to say something?
I do want to speak on that.
Yeah.
So that's what Northwest Victim Services is. We're not a one-and-done agency. I tell all my victims, they're the co-homicide survivors, the parents, we will be in your life. I will be in your life for as long as you will allow me to be. That will be next week, next month, next year, 2 years from now. All of our services are free. We offer lost wages for the mother who's sitting by her child's bedside or who has to, unfortunately, make funeral arrangements. We have free therapy. Everything that we do for our community members is free. And it's not just for a day, 2 days, it's years to come.
I just meant like in the school setting if they...
And Dr. Joyner, so the DA's office put me in contact with Dr. Joyner because her students have experienced trauma. So we contacted her, and we're offering her staff and her students services. Thank you.
Excuse me, you called out the city council members earlier.
I did not call out the city council members.
Okay.
I did.
You did?
I did.
Okay, what exactly do you want, do you need from the city?
I need to call for a state of emergency. Call it what it is. When you have deaths of men being shot in the street, 458 to date, and we continue business as usual. The city council were elected to protect and serve. They represent every neighborhood, and they should take charge in the city and call it what it is, a state of emergency.
Krasner, can you respond to that?
I can respond as follows. In order to make sure that we could present a united front, we had a limited time within which to do this. As you can see, the commissioners had to leave on urgent business. So I can tell you this. First of all, I am very grateful for the attendance of council members Derek Green and also Kendra Brooks. And I know they, like many other members in council, are listening and they understand the urgency of the moment and that they are trying to do what they can consistent with what Principal Joyner mentioned. I can tell you that at this point we will not take any further questions. However, I and other people who are here may very well be willing to answer further questions for you on an individual basis. But at this time we're going to conclude the press conference. So thank you very much. And I will answer your question. As you know, that has been an issue involving the mayor, and I don't want to speak for the mayor.
As USDA observing
astronauts on parade. That's a good one.
From a wedding.